guest. This is this meeting for online presenters is now begun. Guest, please note, in order to be a member of this club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 speeches from either traditional or pathway programs, or you have substantial experience in presentation demonstrating 3 to 5 minutes of speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests of membership must be subject to board approval. If you have not done so, please change on your panel. Please change to make sure that your name, role, if you have one, and thank you for those already have done, and rename it. For the guest, please right click and put a G in front of your name. We have members, often guests from all over the world. Thus, you already have a number of countries here you have heard. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask you be aware of the language or the word that you use that may consider offensive or otherwise insensitive due to the cultural differences. Please note that the recording of this meeting, your video, audio contribution may be used for club marketing purpose. Also, please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. And with that note, I'd like to welcome our club president, Mr. Nik Lakhani.
Thank you very much, Mafazor. Thank you for that. Today we have a wonderful session. I really wanted to I really want you to enjoy today's session. We have lots of guests, we have lots of members. We have an amazing Toastmaster of the day. And although I can't see him on screen at the moment, I'm sure he's going to be amazing. And one of the things about today is it's about getting clarity, and it's about connections, and it's about collaboration as well. But you'll hear from me later. Now, I'd love to introduce our Toastmaster of the day from the state of Massachusetts, but not near Boston. Please welcome Mr. Brian David Crawford.
Thank you very much, Nick. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, my name is Brian David Crawford. I know what some of you are thinking. Why is this guy wearing a gator costume? Well, I think we're all aware that the next holiday coming up happens to be Halloween. And I thought, what's the best possible costume to wear for Halloween other than one that I happen to have on me? Why do I have a 6-foot-tall alligator costume? I went to San Francisco State University, and the gator, was the mascot of San Francisco State University. Again, why would San Francisco State have an alligator as a mascot? It's quite simple. We were the Golden Gate-ers. You're welcome. We've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to start things off by introducing some of our technicians. First, I'd like to welcome our timer for today to tell us about her role. Please welcome Elizane Warren Russell.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Toastmaster of the day, and fellow guests and members. My role today is to keep time for all of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to introduce the person who I think has the most difficult role, because you have to tell people very unawkward things about them. Please welcome our Ockcounter, Birgit Starman.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I am suddenly your Ockcounter for this evening, and my role is to take a look at filler words. So that could be ahs, ums, you knows, so's, repeats. Of course, some words do have legitimate uses, such as so and, so I'm going to try to weed those out, and I'll be letting everybody know how they did or did not do at the end of the meeting. Thanks, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Birgit. Next, we're going to talk about the person who's going to make sure that we're all speaking the proper King's English. That would be our grammarian, Lou Brown. Lou, can you tell us about your role?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Gatormaster. As grammarian, I will be checking for proper usage of grammar as well as improper usage of grammar, colorful phrases, etc. I'll share a report at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Lou. Our next person is the person who has got a role called the Watcher. If you're new to our club, you might not know what that is. So please, Marianne Grady, can you tell us what you're doing?
Hi, everybody. I got my eyes on you. I'll be looking at your squares, making sure that you're in the right place, that your backgrounds are appropriate, and that nothing is distracting. So remember, I'm watching. Back to you, BDC.
Thank you so much. I should be worried about something who's not distracting with this particular costume. My goal is not to distract you. My goal is to entertain you and keep things moving along. Next, I'd like to bring up the chat monitor, another role that's specific to an online club. Please welcome Latasha Henderson to tell us about her role.
Hello, everyone. I am going to be monitoring the chat. I will be looking for the different comments that are made in the chat. There's a lot of joking that goes on in the chat, a lot of shenanigans, as we said earlier. So I'll be monitoring the chat box to see if there's anything that we need to say to the group and just kind of keeping track of what's going on over there.
Thank you so much, Latasha. Next, our last technician role that I want to introduce is the vote counter. Today, we recruited this person at the last minute, but I'm sure they're going to do a bang-up job. Please tell us about your role, Jeanette Francois.
Yes, hello, Mr. Toastmaster. My role tonight is to count the votes in the chat, and then I'll give the votes back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction about the role. At this point, I'd like to transition from the technicians to the prepared speaking portion of the meeting. Our first speaker today is Chany Ockert. Chany is giving her icebreaker. For those of you who remember what it's like to give an icebreaker, it is the most difficult speech. I'm not saying that to scare her. I'm telling her that will get every speech you do after this will become easier. So for an introduction, I asked her, what do you want me to tell everyone about it? She said, if at first you don't succeed, join Toastmasters. When speaking is a life requirement, why wouldn't everyone join Toastmasters? Here with an icebreaker titled, The Worst Speech Ever, please welcome Chany Ockert.
Thank you, Mr. Toast Gator. I appreciate your introduction. Imagine this. I was ready to give a speech. It was a speech that I had memorized. It was a speech that I had given successfully over the years. I knew that I would be successful. So I focused on the most important elements, which is, was I wearing the right makeup? Did I have the right outfit? Was I going to be confident as I walked out onto the stage in front of 2,000 people to give the best speech ever to a group of individuals to tell them why they needed to support adoption and foster care? I was so ready, and I knew that I would be so successful that there would be lines of people who would stand up afterwards and ask to be an adoptive or foster parent. I walked out onto the stage, and all of the bright lights that were shining down on me from this auditorium completely blinded me. And it was dead silent. And I froze. Not only did I freeze, I forgot every single word that I had memorized. I forgot how to blink. I forgot how to talk. And I didn't know what to do next. Finally, after too long, I came to my senses and I stumbled through a few words. I do not remember what I said. I guarantee you it did not move anyone to consider foster care or adoption. And there were no lines at the end of the speech. There was no one to talk to about foster care and adoption. I had failed. I had failed for the most important speech up to that moment I had ever given. I now know why I did. I did because I did not understand how people learn. I had started up here. I thought I knew exactly how to give speeches. I thought I knew the right way to engage the audience, but I didn't. According to Noel Birch from the 1970s and the Conscious Competent Ladder, we start off, for any skill that we're trying to learn, we start off unconsciously unskilled. And that's exactly where I was. I was unconsciously unskilled and I fell off the cliff. I fell off the cliff, and at that point, I didn't know if I would recover my confidence. I suddenly realized that I was consciously unskilled. I did not understand the art of speech making. Now, in my job, however, I didn't have a choice. I had to continue to give speeches. And so I started to slowly gain more and more skills around speeches. And I continued to realize how unskilled I was and how much more I needed to learn. And then I started to turn a corner. I started to see the fact that I was gaining more and more skills, but I was so very conscious of what I needed to learn. I started giving speeches in my field, which is fundraising. And I knew some of the elements I needed to have, how to engage the audience, how to build a speech. But I was still missing one important element, and that was Toastmasters. When a friend told me that Toastmasters existed in my community, I immediately signed up. And in signing up, I gained the avenue to gain skills, to gain confidence, and to gain the competence I needed to give speeches successfully so that the audience would not only enjoy my speeches, enjoy my trainings, but they would actually be able to put those in what I was teaching them into practice. And so across my career, things dramatically changed and people started coming to me and saying, could you speak on this topic? And I was reaching up to the point where I was suddenly unconsciously competent, unconsciously skilled in the speeches that I was giving. And I was so excited. And then the pandemic hit. And I realized online learning is completely different. And now I have started over. Back to you, Mr. Toastgator.
Thank you so much, Chany. That was a wonderful speech. I really enjoyed it. And I know everyone's asking themselves, am I going to repine that I'm wearing this costume? Because I can see what you're writing about me in the chat. I know some people are thinking he can't see anything, but I got two eyes right here. And with that, I'd like to bring up our next speaker. Our second speaker today is Nik Lakhani. He is following up on the vision he set out previously and will report on the progress and give members a quote unquote State of the Union address. With 4 months nearly completed as president, Nik will share what he has achieved and learned along the way, and also how members can affect their own experience with members of this club. With a speech titled State of the Online Presenters Union, what does it mean for the members? Please give a very warm welcome to our president, Nik Lakhani.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow members, and most welcome guests. Last time, I was speaking about the vision that I set for myself, the vision that I saw about this club. I'm proud to be president, and I'm 4 months in now, and let's take stock of where we are. And it's not just about me, it's about you, the members, it's about the board, it's about how we work together. Last time, I talked about the 3 C's. You remember: clarity, collaboration, and connection. Let's have a look and see what we've done over the last 3 months, 3 or 4 months. First of all, now, these 3 items are really interesting, really hard, but for this meeting, it's a little bit boring. Let me run through them. the first thing that we did within a couple of weeks of the start of July, we had a vote. What did we have a vote on? We had a vote on how to change the way we vote. Yes, hold the back page. That's what we did. And we got a quorum here. And what we did was we said, let's have active membership. Let's have a process of that to enable us to run our business meetings a little bit easier. And with an awful lot of sweat, awful lot of work behind the scenes with the executive board and various people who helped us, we got that done. Tick. That's wonderful. One down. What else did we do? One of the things was that it's okay for us to say we want to do this for our members, but what do the members really want? So we asked you. We carried out a survey which is sent by email that you can do online. We even had an event had a meeting where you're invited to go into breakout rooms and fill out those forms and give verbal feedback in the forms of a discussion. And all of this information was taken down and used by our board members, our wonderful officers, to actually help them develop their role and their goals for this year. And one of those items was a speech-a-thon, different events, projects. We even have had from that particular event 3 or 4 people helping our officers and collaborating. Brilliant. Great job, everybody. So number 2 item, tick. We got that done. Member feedback. The third thing that we got done, we actually had a vote on a budget, and we passed the budget with a difference in the investment that we make as members. And we got that approved almost unanimously. And again, tick, we got that done. That's the business. That's the business of committees and so on. But we got that done for the members, for the betterment of the members. What does this actually mean? Well, in reality, let's have a look at the 3 C's. What did we do in terms of things that help the members? In terms of clarity, what the VP Education Christian has done with his helpers is to actually make sure that when you take on a role that you know what you're doing. But if you don't know, please reach out to them. We have 70 members in this club right now, even after the renewals. So please get in touch with them. If you're not sure about something, a lot of you are new, reach out to Christian and his team, because timers and vote counters and other functionaries, we do things a little bit differently here. Or we may do something exactly the same, but let's find out. In terms of collaboration, let me give you an example. Yes, Christian has his team. Elaine has her team. And we have Elaine and her team have created a newsletter in order for us to keep in touch with the news of the club, news of our members, and to enable you to actually have a forum by which you can actually shout out and say, I need someone on my guidance committee for my HPL. It doesn't have to be in this club. It can be in your other clubs that you belong to. That's fine too. Think outside the box and just ask for help. Plenty of people around. In terms of connection, another thing I feel that means a lot to you, which although you've been hearing about it, you will see in December, about the VTM conference. What's actually happened is that we are one of 6 clubs banding together, collaborating and connecting to create a wonderful virtual Toastmaster conference on the 5th of December, 2020. It's going to have 2 contests, 5 speakers, and it's going to blow your socks off. So put that in your diary. You are going to hear more about it. And are we making connections there? Yes, we are. I'll tell you 3 things that I've learned over the last few months. One of them I was told beforehand, okay? The first one was stay in your lane, Nick. That was from our wonderful immediate past President Lois. Stay in your lane? Yes, stay in your lane. Let your officers do your work. Okay, I'll learn that. The second thing I learned was to listen. I'm kind of working on that. What's the third thing I need to learn? Or I did learn? Stay in your lane, Nick. Still stay in your lane. Okay, I'm still learning it. I'm still learning. But that's the point. I come here to learn. I come here to have fun. I also have a good time. Are you doing that? What are you doing in terms of your membership of this club? What are you doing in terms of contributing to your learning, to your clarity, to your collaboration with others, to your connection? Have a think about it. As a board, we're happy to help you. As a club, we have plenty of people who are happy to help, especially those new members. Raise your hands, ask for help, and if we can't find somebody who can, we'll try and work our way around it. And most importantly, we want you to feel as though we are approachable, we are clear, but we also listen. In summary, we've achieved a lot, I think. We've learned a lot, I think. We've got a lot of things to learn. The one call to action for all of us is turn up and just keep doing this. Keep turning up, having fun, but learning something while you're doing it. It gives me great pleasure to tell you State of Union at Online Presenters is pretty good. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Nick. That was a wonderful speech. I appreciate that you think that our state is really good. Because many of us in this club are leaders in Toastmasters, in businesses, in our churches, in our swamps. And in many ways, we all lead by example. But what exactly is the example that we set? Graham Cairns is here, and he's been pondering that as he works through his current path, which is strategic relationships. Today, he's giving us a presentation called Leading by Example. Please welcome Graham Cairns.
Mr. Toastgator, members, guests, if you're in gallery view, you may have seen me smiling wryly and nodding my head as Nick was talking about being told to stay in your lane, and I'll explain why. He holds too many responsibilities at all levels. He addresses all impeccably, but he could improve by shedding some. When gaps happen, he tends to cover them by giving up roles assigned to him. Graham's very busy, but he manages to keep Toastmasters a priority. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests, I'm now into my 6th year since rejoining Toastmasters, and in that time I've done a number of roles. The one I think I was most successful at was Vice President for Education at a struggling club, and without blowing my own trumpet, or not too much I hope, I was fairly successful in that role. When I took it on, the club was within a whisker of folding. A year later, we'd reached President's Distinguished. And while I do not claim responsibility for that success, I would like to think that in the very least I played a part. And that's what this speech is about tonight. As one of the electives available in level 5 of most Pathways projects, there is a project entitled Leading in Your Volunteer Organisation. It calls on members to serve in a leadership role for at least 6 months and then to prepare a report on that process. But it also calls for what's known as a 360-degree evaluation. Now, who here is familiar with 360-degree evaluations? I see a few hands, but I also see a lot of quizzical looks. Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one who wonders, what sorcery is this? Well, a 360-degree evaluation is where you seek feedback on a role from your peers, from your subordinates, and from your supervisors. In a Toastmasters term, that means in my role as Vice President for Education, I sought feedback from my club members, the Toastmasters equivalent of subordinates, from my fellow committee members, peer equivalents, and from my club president, my supervisor. And the response from them was quite heartwarming, but also a bit, well, disturbing in their consistency. One member was lovely when she said, Graham is very calm and clear with his leadership. Graham takes the time from his busy schedule to direct the team. But that same member also observed last week we had a meeting with just one speech, so Graham stepped up and gave a speech. He was also evaluator for the other speech. Now that's echoed in some of the other quotes which I read out before. He holds too many responsibilities. When gaps happen, he tends to cover them by giving up the roles assigned to him. It's all lovely praise about how selfless I am and how prepared I am to cover gaps. But as a leader, I've come to realize it is in itself a failing. As one peer said in that 360-degree evaluation, this is an area in which I sometimes disagree with Graham. Members ought to understand it is their responsibility to find members to cover their absences. Now, I'm not Pat Malone here. That's an Aussie rhyming slang for on my own. I mean, every Vice President Education or former Vice President Education in this meeting has faced this issue. And almost everyone, I suspect, has filled gaps on the night because we feel it's our responsibility to fix things, that it's our responsibility to give guests a good impression of the Toastmasters educational program. It's our responsibility, it's my responsibility to plug those gaps. But by stepping in to cover those gaps, am I in fact absolving members from being responsible for their inaction? And if that's the case, am I doing my club, am I doing my members any favours? I think not. Which brings me to the title of this speech, Leading by Example. There's no doubt that I have been leading by example, by charging ahead with pathways, for example. I've completed or nearly completed 7 paths so far. So new and existing members of the clubs that I belong to know that if they've got any questions regarding the program, they can generally come to me and I can answer them, which lets me lead by example. But there was another set of examples that I realised I was also displaying, and they were somewhat less beneficial. I was setting the example to new members that if they didn't meet their commitments, well, it didn't matter. I mean, Graham will pick up the slack. I was setting the example to my fellow committee members that we need to hold the hands of our newer members, but that risks stopping those members' growth. I was setting the example that someone else, someone senior, would make it all right on the night. What that meant was that I was leading by the wrong example. But I am learning, slowly perhaps, but I am learning. For example, there was another part of the 360-degree evaluation which said he improved the club usability of future schedules by posting proposed schedules so that members could engage up to 6 meetings through the website. This was after requests that the meeting schedules be posted earlier. So there, I took advice. One of my team members said Graham is very open to the team's opinions, is very diplomatic, and will progress decisions as per the information required. Well, I'm not sure I'd go as far as saying that I am diplomatic and very open, but I am beginning to accept the counsel of others. I am becoming more willing to let go. As an example, at a different club, of which I was also VPE, at one stage I was VPE of 4 clubs at once, we had a speaker drop out with just 6 hours notice, and another just simply failed to front on the night. There were also 3 or 4 other members who were no-shows. Now, prior to getting this 360-degree evaluation process, I would have gone into a spin and I would have done my damnedest to rebuild the agenda, and I would have fallen into a funk if I couldn't. Instead, I just handed the problem off to someone else, the Toastmaster of the evening, and went on with my life. Oh, I occasionally email members reminding them of their Toastmasters promise to prepare for and fulfill meeting assignments, but I'm trying to lead by example and not pick up the slack in my role as president of yet another club this year. My job, I have decided instead, is to assist my executive committee members where required, but like Nik, not to stick my oar in otherwise. I intend coming up with contingencies for when things go wrong, but I will not be thrusting myself into the gaps unless it is an absolute last resort. So, will this new example be maintained for the rest of the Toastmasters year? Well, I'll report back later in the year if anyone's interested, but in the meantime, I'm going to lead by example and hand back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Graham. And I think I speak from all Gators here. We do want that feedback. We want you to come back and tell us what you've learned. Now we're going to move on to the impromptu speaking of the portion, what I like to call Gator Topics. Please welcome our Gator Topics, David Carr.
Are we doing an induction first, I think? Yes. Lou Brown would like to.
Good to know the agenda didn't have them in the right order. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to bring up our Vice President of Membership at this point, to go over a new membership application, please welcome Lou Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the meeting, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Bear with me 1 second while I share my screen. Okay, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, on behalf of Online Presenters Toastmasters, it is my duty and privilege to induct Elizane Warren Russell into our club. This is an important occasion both for Elizane and for our club. As experienced Toastmasters and speakers, this individual will enrich us as we strive to enrich her in a spirit of sharing and enjoyment. Together, we expand our effectiveness as dynamic leaders, presenters, and communicators. Now, Elizane, please wait until I call on you to affirm your commitment to the Toastmasters promise. In the presence of online presenters, do you pledge to attend meetings regularly and prepare for each assignment, to actively participate in club activities, to evaluate others in a positive, constructive manner, to build open, friendly relationships with our fellow members, and to bring other new members into the club so that they can gain the benefits of Toastmasters? Please unmute and say I do.
I will.
Wonderful. To the current members of Online Presenters, I remind you of your pledge to support Elizane in her quest for self-development, to provide her with positive, helpful evaluations, to maintain a friendly, supportive atmosphere, and to make her Online Presenters Toastmasters membership a rewarding and fulfilling experience. Congratulations, Elizane, and welcome to Online Presenters.
Thank you so much.
Fellow Toastmasters, feel free to unmute and welcome Elizane to our club.
Welcome, Elizane. One of us.
Welcome.
Up here.
Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Lou Brown. I've noticed in the chat that I forgot a very important thing, and that's to address the fact that we need to find out our timer. So timer, can you please tell us whether or not our speakers qualified for the Best Speaker of the Night award?
All qualifies.
Excellent. At that point, if there's people who are interested in voting and such thing wish to do so, please send a private message, not to everybody, a private direct message to the vote counter of the night, Jeanette Francois. At this point, I would now like to turn it over to our Gator Topics leader, David Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Toast Gator. How many table topics do you suppose we have time for tonight? 3, 4, 5, 6? What's your best guess?
You have done back in about 18 minutes.
Okay. So we can do maybe 5. How about that? All right.
Yes.
We have a volunteer, actually. By the way, I'm coming to you from Skull Island because the virtual pirate hat was the closest thing to a costume I could come up with on short notice. We have a volunteer, Shakashore. Shakashore, scary movies. Do you love them or hate them?
Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests of Online Presenters. Oh my God. You have no idea how happy and good I feel to be back to Online Presenters and giving a table topic session. Usually when I give a table topics, it's usually about ensuring that I get all the parts of the speech right and I go towards the goal of the best table topics vote. And I've been doing that over the last 5 years, but today I'm just sitting back and relaxed in my home. And I'm so glad that I'm able to speak. This is exactly how a normal movie starts. And then it gets scarier. You know what's the most scary part in a scary movie? It is this, the lights. The lights are on in the beginning, and then the lights go off. That's the effect that the director wants to give to everybody. And that is the reason why I always hated scary movies right from my childhood. Whenever I went to a scary movie, I had my mom on my right and my dad on my left. Their arms on my left eye and on my right eye. They were watching the movie, I was watching their hands. But I was also scared of the sound that the scary movie directors give us. You know, the sound produced is scarier than the rocket that SpaceX recently sent. And this man sent that rocket, and it's scarier than that rocket. You see, sounds come from all directions. You've seen 1D, you've seen 2D, you've seen 3D. But when I see a scary movie, I see 4D. Sound comes from below my knees. I don't know where the ghost is, and I'm absolutely scared even now to watch a scary movie. And that is why what I do is, if some friend of mine takes me to a scary movie, I ensure that one of my friends is on my right, one of my other friends is on my left, and then I have their arms on my left eye and my right eye. I close my eyes and watch the movie. Over to you, Table Topics Master.
All right. Question number 2. What for you has been the scariest part of 2020? Jim Barber.
Yowza, 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 Mr. Topics Master. What has been the scariest thing about the year 2020? I don't have enough time to do that for a table topics response. We've got 1 to 2 minutes. Even a speech, you get 5 to 7 minutes, and I don't think that would be long enough. 1 to 2 minutes to go into all the things we've got. We've got COVID. We've got here in South Florida, we've got hurricanes. We've got murder hornets. We've got one thing every month, something else comes up that we need to be afraid of. And it's not even the end of the year yet. Oh my gosh, this has been a year. There are very few things that scare me. I've been married for 35 years. There are very few things that scare me. But this year has been frightening from the very beginning. Now, the thing is, I had such hope for this year. You remember everybody talked about 2020, the year of vision. Yeah, right. That didn't work out worth anything. And every month, almost every week, something new comes along for us to be afraid of. So I would love to give you an answer to that, Mr. Topics Master, but you know, do I give you the list alphabetically, chronologically, numerically, by priority? There is just no way that I could go through all of them, and it would do a disservice to focus on simply one. So I'm just going to say, come on, 2021, I'm ready. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Jim. So our theme for tonight that we settled on was Halloween, which, at least in the United States, is a lot of scary imagery, people dressing up in scary costumes or sometimes just silly costumes. It's not observed exactly worldwide, but apparently it is observed in the UK and Ireland, or so I'm told. That's what Wikipedia tells me. I wanted to pick on somebody from outside of the US and maybe outside of an Anglo country. Asil, do people in your area celebrate Halloween, or is there some similar observance of things that are spooky or scary or dressing up in costumes? Asil.
Excuse me, are you asking me, David?
Asil, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. We don't celebrate Halloween, and we don't have any celebrations of scary something. I've learned about Halloween. I learned about Halloween when I was in America. I remember my first experience. I was at home, my husband was at work, we just came and somebody knocked the door and I opened, and there were like a group of teenagers standing in their scary costumes. They were really scary. And imagine my emotion seeing them, and I didn't know about this Halloween at all. I was just shut the door and run to the father room. And I called my husband and I said, some people standing there, they just came and said, what they're doing there? What are they doing there? So that was my first experience. Yes, we don't celebrate anything, but I love all kind of celebration because it gives you emotions. It gives you the purpose of living your life differently. It's all about communication. It's all about seeing people and having fun. So this holiday, I think, is great. I know that the meaning of the holiday is different back in the history, but now it's different too in terms of having fun. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right, thank you. You know, I think we sometimes introduce table topic speakers by saying next victim, and that might have been appropriate for Sil. I think she felt like she was being picked on there. She certainly was when she opened that door. I'd like somebody to tell me about a fear you overcame. The only condition is it cannot be public speaking. We don't want to hear about you overcoming your fear of public speaking by coming from Toastmasters. Tell us about something else. How about Rosina? Is Rosina here? Saw her earlier. Maybe not. Hearing no Rosina, how about Carl Walsh?
Mr. Topics Master, I have done many things in my life simply because I was afraid of them and wanted to take them on. One of my earliest ones was scuba diving. Now, I have no fear of the water. I was a competitive swimmer from a very young age. I was in the water the whole time. But drowning has always been one of my greatest fears. And so I took on scuba diving and found that ecstasy of being underwater and being able to breathe. It's like nothing else. I'm so glad I did it. But the biggest one that I overcame was skiing, snow skiing. So I went with some friends up to Lake Tahoe. We did a weekend. I learned how to ski on the bunny slopes there. And a week later, I visited my brother in Anchorage, Alaska. And he said, you learned how to ski? Great, let's go skiing. And he took me to a place that was very close to him. We got up to the top of the mountain. I was very proud of myself for not taking out a bunch of people getting off the chairlift. We went to the edge of the run, and edge is the correct word. It was a cliff practically. I could look straight down into the parking lot to all those little dots lined up that were actually cars. I'm not going to tell you how I got down because I need to preserve my dignity somehow. But I got down, it wasn't pretty, and I spent about an hour at the bottom on the bunny slopes getting my courage back up. My brother came down, he saw me, he said, how you doing? And I said, hey, I'm doing great. I didn't fall once. And that's when he said, if you aren't falling, you're not trying. I never forgot that. And it was taking on something that I was afraid of that gave me that valuable lesson. Back to you, Mr. Topics Master.
All right. All right, last one, I think. Next person I'm going to call on is going to tell me about the weirdest Halloween you can remember. Weirdest Halloween you can remember, Roxanne.
The weirdest Halloween that I can remember, I'm struggling at the moment just to remember any. growing up in Jamaica, it wasn't something I celebrated at all. And when I came to the US, I really didn't get it. So I don't know if I would have a way of judging the weirdness. I don't know how one describes the weird factor. But I do remember an occasion that there was a scary movie marathon going on. And I was about 2 movies into the marathon before I realized it was supposed to be scary movies. I thought they were comedies. And the things that were happening in them just seemed so outlandish to me that I thought they were laughable. I don't know if that qualifies as a weird Halloween. There was one other one. I'm going to say this one. I packed up my house with candy because I finally got it. I gotta have candy, right? So I loaded bowls. No one came to my house, no one, until about 10 o'clock at night. A woman with her 2-year-old daughter in her hand, she said, I fell asleep and I told my child, there's no point going out. Sure enough, I had candy, but no one came to my house because I had no jack-o'-lantern. I didn't know that I had to put a light on. That might have been my weirdest Halloween. Back to you, Toastmaster.
All right. So can we get a timing report, please, on our table topics participants?
Sorry about that. Everyone's on time.
Okay, so who did we have? We had Sekishore, Jim Barber, Asil, and Carl, and Roxanne.
Roxanne.
Back to you, Mr. Toastgator.
Thank you so much, David. At this point, I want to remind everyone, if you haven't already voted for the best speaker, please vote for that by sending your private message to Jeanette Francois, as well as sending your votes for best table topic. And now, this is where I say aloha to you as we transition from the speaking portion to the evaluation portion of the meeting. But do not repine for me, because at this point, we have someone who's even funnier than I am. Please welcome our general evaluator, Asil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastgator BCD. In the 21st century, getting feedback and reports from our wonderful evaluators and helpers is the key to be a successful speaker. We will have a great opportunity to learn from their commendations and suggestions, and they have to mention at least 1 point for improvement in their evaluation. And at the end of the meeting, I will also share my observations regarding to the overall quality of the meeting. First, I will now call upon our evaluators. Our first evaluator is Lois Margolin to evaluate Chany Ockert's speech. Please help me welcome her.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, Gators, and especially Chany. This was a really interesting speech. Now, we had met for a few minutes to talk about what are you looking for? What do you want to get out of this speech? And I was very happy to hear that this was not her true icebreaker. This is just a start of a path. What she really wanted was, will you remember me? So how many people are going to remember this presentation? Raise your hand. Yeah, the fact that you were able to use the whiteboard was really fun. And we were watching it, and I gotta tell you, when you said I had to start all over and you cleared that board, I was like, oh, that is so cool. I don't know if I'm multitasking enough to do that, but I'm gonna give it a try. So I thought you did a fabulous job using your presentation skills. And this is presentation mastery, so kudos to you. I also liked your cute introduction with Toastgator. That was cute, and everybody followed along with your theme, and that you quoted where you had competent, confident, ladder. So you had some really, really great things in there. I do have a couple of takeaways for you. And we had chatted and she asked me to give her kind of a difficulty evaluation. So here's what I would recommend. Number one, when you're talking about I had failed, your voice did come down a little bit, but that's a great opportunity for you to use body language. I had failed. Hang your head in deject. You know, make sure that you recognize that, hey, this is just my whole body language is showing the failure. I would also use my vocal variety when you're talking about walking on stage and all the bright lights. It was the same voice throughout. So I would have had something like, I was so excited I was getting to rock on stage, and as I got on stage, the bright lights blinded me. Set yourself up so you can bring yourself down, and that will make it a little bit stronger. I'm also a firm believer of the power of three, and a lot of times you left me hanging. And I was like, give me the third one. You would say, I had become unconsciously competent, unconsciously skilled. What's the third? Because I always like threes. But here is my overall challenge to you. I loved the whiteboard and I loved how you used it. However, there wasn't enough going on in the whiteboard for it to take up that long period. So what I would have done is something very similar to this, and I'm not using a whiteboard because I'm not as good as you are, but show your screen, and then after a couple of moments when nothing's happening there, come back here, and at the end, when you're showing that it's cleared, bring it back. And that way you are showing that you care about them, you want to see them, and it's a little more sophisticated, and it is a challenge, but I'm watching you, and I think you are up for that challenge. Overall, fabulous speech, and I am so happy I had the opportunity to evaluate you. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lois. Wonderful evaluation. Our next evaluator is Lucas Calafel to evaluate Nik Lakhani's speech. Please help me welcome Lucas Calafel.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, and hello to all fellow Toastmasters and guests. I'm going to be evaluating tonight's, or this meeting's, second speech. I'm going to structure my evaluation into three areas, similar to what we heard about the 3 C's. The first one being the structure. And when it comes to the structure, the speech gave us a concrete structure, a detailed structure in terms of bullet points and checklists. And within that structure, what we heard was not just generalizations of what was done, but concrete examples so that everyone, even if you were not an officer or you're just even a guest, you could still have a general understanding of what changes were made in the State of the Union and what was included in the checklist. The next area is going to be the rhetoric, the style, the certain techniques that were used within the speech. Well, we heard a lot of our rhetorical questions, which were timed well, but was hoping that there would be some pause in between before you jumped off into the answer to the rhetorical question that would let us, that would allow for the question to sink in, and as you transition over, we can understand what the question was and what information you're giving related to that question. And then you framed, and then what we heard is a framing of the checklist, and to make it more personable to all of us by asking, what does it mean for the members of online presenters? All of this information, everything, the checklist, the to-do items, everything, and you elaborated on that. From the third thing that I'm going to talk about is the technical. Well, actually, before I get to the technical, there are some other comments on the rhetorical technique side. You explained the 3 C's, and you explained what it is that you learned. This project is an opportunity for you to discuss what you learned from being the president of Online Toastmasters, and that is a key component which you were able to achieve. So you were able to communicate with the audience on what was done, what does it mean and why is it important, and also what you learned from the overall experience. You brought it full circle for everyone. And you left us with a call to action. a lot of the stuff talked about what you learned and what was done, but what information do you have for us? And you were able to communicate that by giving us the call to action to learn, have fun, and follow, and I guess follow what you enjoy doing in Toastmasters Online Presenters and continue to do that. From a technical standpoint, you had hand gestures, and when you look at the camera, you don't speak at everyone, you speak to everyone, which I think is important, especially in this platform where you have the eye contact, which is very direct, and you don't stray from that. You have hand gestures that even although you're very close to the camera, they're still, your hand gestures are still in view. With that, it was a very great speech. And if there was one thing that I would suggest to elevate that speech is to provide a visual of the bullet points and the checklist of what you're able to complete, as well as the 3 C's so that can remain in our mind. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lucas. Great evaluation. Our last evaluator is Antoinette Trin, who will evaluate Graham's Cairns speech. Please help me welcome Antoinette Trin.
Good evening, General Evaluator and fellow Toastmasters. What a wonderful speech. That's the American Sign Language for wonderful speech given by Graham. I am happy that I got another opportunity to evaluate Graham. He asked me, as a matter of fact, he told me rather, to just concentrate on 3 areas. And that is what I have done tonight. The first section, or the first area, is language. When we say language, we're talking about descriptive and being specific. Some of the things that he spoke about was, what sorcery is this? He drew a simile with reference to Pat Malone on my own. I like the use of the word, the phrase repetitive use of lead by example, lead by example, lead by example. And also, I like the word of trusting, using the word trust, trusting myself in the gap. The next area that he wanted me to look at was gestures. When he used his both hands, it was in the frame, it was in the picture frame. However, when he used one hand, it was more so down or not really in the picture frame. So my suggestion is that maybe he should be more aware of this and try to improve in his next speech. The other area that he wanted me to pay close attention to is the speed. I know Graham, his default setting is talking fast. But I must say, in tonight's speech, he slowed down considerably. In that, I was able to understand most of the words, or most of what he was saying, I was able to understand. So as a matter of fact, I didn't need a timing device to take note of how many words per second he had to speak. And I was very grateful and thankful. I'm sure every one of you were also grateful and thankful that, and also relieved that he actually spoke, should I say, slower than his normal speed. And I'm looking forward to many more speeches by you, Mr. Graham. And back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Antoinette. Wonderful evaluation. Thank you. I will now ask our timer, Elizan. Please let us know if all of our evaluators are qualified.
All evaluators have qualified.
Thank you, Elizan. So please send your votes to our vote master. Who is our vote?
That's Jeanette.
Jeanette, okay, Jeanette, thank you. I will now call our helpers for their reports. Now we will hear from our accountant, Birgit.
I guess there's no Gator name for the table for the general evaluator today. Thank you, Asil. I would say this club it's really difficult to find ahs and ums in this club because everybody really does such a good job. The most common theme I found was repeats, more filler repeats. There are a couple of really good examples where people used repeats effectively as part of their storytelling technique, but in terms of filler words, that seems to be our main thing. So Chany, you had 2 ands and 1 repeat. All of your other ands, I think, were appropriate. Nik, 1 and 5 repeats. And Graham, you had 1 so. Mr. Gator Master, you had 2 repeats. And David, you had 2 ahs. Psychoshore, you had 1 ah. Jim, you had 1 repeat, but all of the other repeats you had were on purpose, so they were beautiful. Asil, you had 2 ahs and 2 repeats. Lucas, 1 ah, 2 repeats. And Antoinette, 2 ands. That is my report, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Birgit. Our next helper is grammarian. Our grammarian tonight is Lou Brown. Please help me welcome Lou Brown.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Word of the day was repine. I did put it in the chat late. Definition is to complain about something. I thought maybe some of you might repine about my tardiness in getting the word out there. I did hear BDC use the word. In terms of improper usage, I think much like Birgit, I find it hard to find misuses of grammar in our club. There may have been a few, those who did some, maybe you caught it yourself. In terms of some colorful phrases, of course, out of the gate, right there, play on words, we had Golden Gators. Chany with the unconsciously competent, incompetent skill. There's some really great usage of alliteration in some ways and just that word usage. Nik, you said tick for the checklist. I thought that was really interesting because it's kind of a different cultural use on the word check. We say check over here and you use tick. Think outside the box, blow your socks off, stay in your lane. Graham, what sorcery is this? I'm not Pat Malone here. I have to look that one up. And schedules, I like that as well because that's not, we say schedules over here, at least some of us do anyway. Saki, sure, they were watching the movie while I was watching their hands. And then 1D, 2D, 3D, and I was thinking, how exactly can I watch 1D? That's I like how you said that. Let's see, Jim B, you gave the list and you said it in so many different ways, chronologically, symbolically, priority, severity. Maybe I got some of those mixed up. I was trying to keep up with your list-making list words. Carl, if you aren't following, you aren't trying. Roxanne, the weird factor could be a name for the next Simon Cowell show. We don't know. Lois used the word deject. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lou. Our watcher, Marianne Grady, will let us know how the visual portion of the meeting was. Please help me welcome Marianne Grady.
Why, hello, fellow Toastmasters. As promised, I've been watching. In with our Halloween theme, Graham had his Day of the Dead skulls. He was wearing a witch hat. David Carr had the seashell skulls, and he was a pirate. Lois had her Halloween background. Elaine had her VTM conference advertisement up, and Andre had his pumpkin in the background. And I saw a couple more springing up as we were getting more towards the end. Costumes, BDC was a gator. Jim Barber had his straw hat. David Carr, he was a pirate. Christian was wearing his 3D glasses. And even though Andre arrived late, he instantly became a pirate. Engagement. Ella San, I noticed right away how involved she was, and she was nodding along with the speakers, indicating her engagement. And then I started noticing that Roxanne, Lucas, Lois, and Graham were doing the same thing. That's a great gift we can give our speakers because they can't always hear us. So when they see us smiling and nodding, that's positive affirmation for them. So good job. Room for improvement. let's see, Lou Brown, your background had like a little light behind you, so you were a little darker than usual. Lucas, your background was very light. Well, now it has spider webs, but earlier it was very light. And since you're fair skinned, it tends to make you look washed out. I would ask that if you're going to eat your dinner, if when you're writing or when you're leaving your desk, to close your video, because it can be distracting, or it could show the speaker that you're not paying attention to them. So even though you might be writing an evaluation and looking down like this, it's a little discourteous to the speaker. So just shut your video when you're doing those types of things. We all need to look up and pay attention for that very same reason, because a lot of us are looking down at our phones or whatever. But remember, somebody's watching. Back to you, Asil.
Thank you so much. Did I call all helpers? I think so, right? Okay. At this time, I will give my general evaluation of the meeting.
No, you forgot the chat monitor.
Oh, okay. Latosha Henderson.
Yeah.
Please help me welcome our chat monitor, Latosha Henderson.
All right, so I was taking screenshots because there was so much going on in the chat. So I'm trying to get to my screenshots. I apologize if I wasn't looking at the screen a lot of times because I was like trying to focus on what was going on in the chat. However, I just want to say thank you to BDC for his funny Halloween costume. And one of the comments was that by the end of the meeting, it would be a sweatsuit. So he has to let us know if it was a sweat, if he is sweating because he was in that big suit. He said there would be no shenanigans, and he started off with the shenanigans. We had a couple jokes about the word of the day. It looks like Dr. Alexander said that the word repine is pine. So you had to use the word pine twice to know what the word was. Trying to see what else took a picture of. Also, there is going to be a meeting after the meeting for our members. So if you guys want to hang out, you can. That was in the chat. And something else I saw. Oh, and also there is a contest coming up, and Elaine mentioned that, or no, David mentioned that in the chat that the contest is coming up. There's going to be 6 clubs, 2 contests, 5 workshops, lots of opportunities to learn. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Latosha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
At this time, again, I will give my general evaluation of the meeting, and it's recommended when you give your commendations, you address to the audience, so the audience can learn what they can apply for their speech. And when you give recommendations, you address to the speaker directly. And we have this technique sandwich. And when you say commendations, and then you mention 1-2 points for improvement, and then you give summary. Some of you went to recommendations, straight to the recommendations. And I think for the variety, it was good. But if you want to follow, then you have to give commendations, and then recommendations, and then summary, okay? And also, all evaluators were great, and I agree with your recommendations. Nik Lakhani did great, and icebreaker. It's great to get to know you. And also Graham, just one recommendation maybe. Your topic was serious and your background didn't match. So it was kind of distracting to listen to you. You might change next time when you give that kind of speech, find another background that relates to your topic, or like not neutral background. And the timer, you just shortly mentioned, but you didn't show your device, what you are going to use, explain colors, everything. So just next time, give full explanation. And I think Toastmaster of the day, he was great, and I left your costume. You set the tone and everyone had fun, I think. And I left all visuals. Overall, the meeting was great and I really enjoyed. Thank you so much for this enjoyable meeting. And the table topics, I loved it. David, great job. Now I will ask our vote counter for who is the winner for each session of the meeting.
Yes.
Jeanette?
Yes,
Jeanette?
yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Madam General Evaluator. For the winners, roulement tambour, roll of drums. I don't know, is that how you say it? Rolling the drums. For the best speaker, it's Chany.
Chany.
And for best evaluator, it's Louis.
Louis.
Rolling the drums, it's for the best table topics, it's Roxanne.
Roxanne.
Back to you, Miss Madame Evaluator.
Thank you, Jeanette. Wonderful. Congratulations to all of the winners. Yay. And on this note, we are on time. I put this 6:57 on this time. I should return my stage back to our wonderful Mr. Toastgater, BDC.
Thank you very much, Sil. I know you guys are all repining for the gator costume, but it's gone. I put it away, but I'll always have this mark on my forehead for the next couple of days. To get us out of here on time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our president, Nik Lakhani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster, Toastgater, Madam General Evaluator, everybody in the room. I have a couple of announcements before I'm going to have a chat with a couple of the guests. We have a speechathon this Saturday, a Halloween speechathon. Have a look at the website. It is now, I believe, 10 a.m. Eastern. Okay, 10 a.m. Eastern. Check it out. There may still be a speaking slot left. Have a look. And all members and guests are welcome. We have our meeting next week where Emily Thompson is the Toastmaster, and please sign up for roles. And we have Toastmasters for the rest of November, but please sign up as a Toastmaster for December. Talking about the December, the winners of our 2 contests recently are going off to our December conference. However, let me just explain that the evaluation contest winners, who are Andre, Louis, and Roxanne, will get Amazon vouchers for $20, $10, and $5 each. And previously for our winners for table topic contests, Roxanne, Angela, and Rosina will get the same, $20, $10, and $5. So well done to them. And let's just speak to one of the guests that we had before, who is on screen over here. Let's have a chat with Seng. Seng, what are you going to take away from today's meeting?
Well, thank you again, Nik, for having me for the second time. Time flies when I attend this meeting. I had lots of fun. I enjoyed the festivity, and I enjoyed all the different costumes. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you. Let's just say hi to another couple of guests, Micah and Janina. What are you going to take away today?
I think I'm going to take away the 3 points: clarity, collaboration, and connection.
and just being able to put that into my into my.
Thank you, and good luck with your gavel club. And please come back anytime, both of you. Always welcome. Thank you. I'm going to actually adjourn. We are going to stop the recording in a second, and then we'll carry on talking to some guests. Can I just say thank you very much for coming today. It's been a great Halloween. It was a great surprise to see a gator taking Toastmaster role. And we'll see you all next week. Well, let's end the official recording now. Thank you very much.